Everyone tries to control the future. We build our defenses high, thinking nothing bad can touch us. But the harder you fight to control everything, the more exhausted you become. There was a man who learned that true strength is not about stopping the storm, but about learning how to use it. In a valley surrounded by mountains, there lived a builder named Aman. He was strong and could lift heavy stones and cut thick trees. Aman liked order. He wanted his life to be perfect, straight, and predictable. But every afternoon, a wild wind blew down from the mountains. It scattered dust around his house, shook his windows, and knocked over his firewood. The wind made his life messy. Aman hated it. He felt attacked personally. One morning he decided to stop the wind forever. He took his shovel and began to dig at the edge of his property. He would build a great wall. If the wall was tall enough and strong enough, the wind would hit it and stop. Then his land would be calm. Then he would be happy. He worked without rest. He carried large rocks from the riverbed one by one up the hill. His muscles ached and sweat rolled down his face. But he did not stop. He mixed thick mud and placed stone perfectly. Day after day, the wall grew higher. When it reached 5 feet, Aman stood behind it with pride. The afternoon wind came rushing down the mountain and hit the wall. But the wind simply went over the top and blew dust into his face. Aman grew angry. The wall was not high enough. He worked for weeks more, making it 10 feet tall and 3 feet thick. He barely slept or ate. He told his neighbors he would defeat the wind. They shook their heads, but Aman did not listen. Finally, a massive wall of gray stone stood complete. It looked unbreakable. Aman crossed his arms and waited. The wind came harder than before. A storm was building. The air howled. The wind hit the wall with tremendous force, and the wall did not move. But because the wall blocked the natural path, pressure built up. The wind screamed around the edges, finding a small crack in the mud. It pushed into the crack. The pressure grew. With a sound like thunder, the top gave way. One stone fell, then another. The wall could not handle the force. It collapsed. Thousands of stones tumbled down, crushing his garden and smashing his fence. The wind rushed over the rubble, stronger than ever, and blew. He didn't try, but because the roof off his shed, his hands bled from work, his back was broken from labor. Everything he built was gone. He had spent all his energy and changed nothing. The wind was still blowing. He felt the world was against him. Aman looked up at the highest hill in the valley. An old miller named Silas lived there where the wind was strongest. Yet Silas always seemed calm and his house was never damaged. Aman decided to ask for help. He walked up the steep path with the wind pushing against him. At the top he found Silas sitting on a bench watching the clouds. Behind him stood a large windmill. Its great wooden sail spun rapidly in the strong wind, humming a low, steady tune. Aman stood before him. "Master Miller, I built a thick wall to stop the wind, but it destroyed everything. Tell me, how thick must I build my wall to make the wind stop? You live at the top, you must know how to fight it." Silas looked at him with kind eyes. He did not laugh. He stood slowly and walked toward his windmill. "Come with me." They stood under the giant spinning blades. The wooden shaft turned a heavy stone inside, crushing grain into fine white flour. "Look at the sails. You didn't try. But because tell me," Aman looked up. "The sails were catching the wind and moving with it." "No, the sails are moving. Correct. The wind is energy. It is a force of nature. If you stand still and try to block it, you take the full weight of that force. You create resistance. Resistance creates pressure. Pressure eventually breaks everything, even stone, even you." Aman frowned. "So I should just let the wind destroy my home? I should do nothing." "No, you do not fight. You align yourself. Look at my mill. When the wind blows from the north, I turn the sails to the north. When it blows from the west, I turn them to the west. I do not ask the wind to change. I change my position to meet the wind. Because I accept it, the wind gives me power. It grinds my grain and does my work. The same wind that destroyed your wall bakes my bread."
Aman looked down at his hands. He thought about his weeks of struggle.
"I wanted it to be quiet. Does not come from stopping the movement of life. Peace comes from moving with it. You built a wall because you were afraid. You wanted to separate yourself from the world. but you cannot separate you. Yourself, you must build a sail, not a wall. But how do I build a sail for my life? Stop resisting what is happening. When a problem comes, do not say this should not be happening. Say this is happening. Then ask, how can I use it? If the wind blows, do not hold your breath. Let it carry you forward. Use the energy of the difficulty to make you stronger. Do not be a rock that cracks. Be a sail that fills. Iman stayed on the hill for a long time, watching the windmill turn. He saw that the stronger the wind blew, the faster the stone turned and the more flour Silas made. The storm was not a bad thing for the miller. The storm was a gift. Iman walked back down to the valley. He looked at the pile of stones where his wall used to be. He did not try to rebuild it. Instead, he cleared the stones away and used the wood from his broken fence to build a small windmill of his own. He connected it to a pump. When the wind blew hard that afternoon, the small blade spun and the pump worked. It pulled fresh water from deep in the ground and watered his garden. The wind still blew and shook the windows, but Aman was no longer angry. He sat on his porch and watched his garden turn green. He was no longer tired. He had stopped carrying the weight of the world. He had learned to let the world carry him. This story is about the difference between control and acceptance. We all build walls. When traffic is bad, we get angry as if our anger will move the cars. That is a wall. When someone disagrees with us, we argue and shout, trying to force them to change. That is a wall. When life brings sudden change, a lost job, a breakup, an unexpected bill, we spend days wishing it had not happened. We say, why me? We stress and worry.
We tense our muscles. We build a wall of mental resistance.
But just like Aman's wall, this resistance eventually cracks. The pressure becomes too much. We get burnout, anxiety, and we feel broken. You cannot control the wind. You cannot control what happens to you, what other people do, or how the world changes. These are forces of nature bigger than you. If you try to block them, you will break. But if you become like the miller, you change your perspective. You build a sail. A sail means using the situation. If you lose a job, you use the free time to learn a new skill or find a better path. You use the energy of change to push you forward. You didn't try. But because if someone is difficult, you use the opportunity to practice patience or set boundaries. When you stop fighting reality, you gain energy. You are no longer exhausted from holding up heavy stones. You turn the struggle into power. The next time stress rises, try this. Visualize the problem as a gust of wind. Instead of letting it hit you and knock you over, imagine catching it. Ask yourself, where does this wind want to take me? Maybe the traffic jam is giving you time to listen to something you love. Maybe the difficult conversation is pushing you toward being more honest. Stop wasting energy on why is this happening and start focusing on what can I do now. You do not need to fix the weather. You just need to adjust your sails.